And welcome back, everybody, to episode 229 of Two Goalies, One Mic. Brought to you, of course, as always, by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western New York locations. If you need a beer, get on over to Fatty Beer. Let them know Two Goalies, One Mic sent you. Always great vibes, live entertainment at Fatty Beer. Down at the Lancaster location, I think they either are just getting ready to finish up or already finished up their concert series for the summer, but always great times at any of their locations, so make sure you check them out. And, of course, Impulse Physical Therapy of Western New York, located at 5087 Broadway, Suite 100 in Depew, New York, right next to Catalyst Fitness. If you had a slip and fall at work, it got your like myself, hurt on the ice, hurt on the field, Alex Peters and his team over there at Impulse Physical Therapy of Western New York will take care of you and get you back on your feet in no time. I am joined along, obviously, with my co-host Connor Hurley, but with the one and only play-by-play man for the Buffalo Sabres, the infamous Dan Dunleavy. Dan, thank you for taking your time, taking some time to speak with us tonight. Super pumped to have you on.
Thanks, gentlemen. And we should say thanks to the 109 degrees going on in LA. We're up to 100 plus today in LA. Is that the deal?
It's pretty bad out here. I have my air conditioning blaring in my living room right now. So yeah, I'm a bit underdressed, but hey, we're in the dog days of summer. You know, like it's not 32 degrees in Buffalo right now. We're getting through a tough period in the Sabres schedule, and we're just thankful for you to be a part of it, Dan.
Yeah, listen, pleasure, and whoever produced your opening video there, I love it. So
I appreciate that.
I got to get some walk-on music to the broadcast from whoever put that together for you guys. That's good.
Yeah, we did that just for you. I love it. No, I got actually Connor. Yeah, with how hot is it? Is it too hot to golf?
No, I'm actually caddying.
He's a big golfer.
I'm caddying over at a country club. I did a double bag loop yesterday, and I think I lost like 10 pounds of sweat. So it is not too hot to golf, not too hot to caddy. But I would say less people are golfing because of it, because the excessive heat warnings are absolutely insane out here.
Can I ask you an honest question, because I don't know the answer to it? How much can you make caddying at, I don't know, just, I guess, reputable clubs? If you go around and you offer to caddy for guys, what are they?
Yeah, so back in the day, I actually caddied at Park Country Club. It's a common place for.
We were just there the other day with the Sabres alumni.
Exactly, yeah. So I caddied there back in high school. Typically over there, I'd say close to 100 if you do a good job on a bag.
Okay.
And then out here at this country club that I'm at, it's a pretty premier country club in the center of Los Angeles. You can get up to $250, $300 a bag.
Very nice.
If you do a good job. So yeah, and if you do 2 bags at a time, which is a double loop, you can have a pretty good day. So I actually just started a few weeks ago, and it's a thing I'll be doing on the side throughout the winter, which is great because you can play year round here.
I don't know if you're a tennis guy, Dan, but he also works for the Tennis Channel.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, no, listen, always for tennis, for me, maybe a little bit like not an average golf fan, because I'm a golf fan when it comes to watching the tour, but obviously the major events, the big name events, and tennis seems to be that. I don't watch a lot of. I can't name all the opens that are held on the tour, both for the men and the women, but the big ones I'm watching for sure. Like, for example, the U.S. Open, I probably won't have the TV not watching any U.S. Open tennis from start to finish. So yeah, it's already gotten underway, if I'm not wrong on that. So yeah,
the qualifying, 16-year-old Michael Antonius from Buffalo actually played in the qualifiers today against this guy named Kei Nishikori, which was really cool because they had a 20-year age difference. He actually took him 6-4, 6-4 in 2 sets. And then our girl, Jessie Pegula, she is the number 3 ranked player in the world right now. And if she were to win the U.S. Open and not play Rybakina in the final, she'd be the number 1 player in the world. So exciting time for her. And she's had an incredible career in tennis, coming out of Buffalo originally and then moving down to Florida. But she is one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world at the moment.
Yeah, and just like F1 did so well in bringing fans closer to that sport, which can be a bit of an elite sport, tennis at times I feel can be a bit of an elite sport as well. I mean, if you're playing it, if you're part of a tennis club, you're into it. If you're not in that kind of lifestyle, you might not follow it too closely. So for me, I enjoy all of the documentaries coming on now that we can watch. And obviously Netflix just had one on, we watched the Rafa Nadal. listen, I knew the guy was playing with some discomfort. I didn't realize how much discomfort throughout his career. And I'm sure every player, just like hockey players and every other, sport you want to talk about, but we don't often think about all the injuries that guys and gals are golfing with and playing tennis with as well, because it's such an individual sport. So they're nice. They're good shows to open up a window into the game.
Netflix does such a good job with those like documentaries too. That one,
Yeah.
The Boys of 1980 or 80. If you're a baseball fan, I'm a big Red Sox fan. The Comeback is one of my favorite documentaries I've ever done, from 2004. So yeah, any chance I get to watch, and if it's a sport I don't watch very much, Netflix always does an incredible job with those.
Agreed.
Kick it over to you, Hurls.
So just starting off here, Dan, I saw a post the other day to get right back into this season. It was from a random Sabres fan on Twitter, and it came out of nowhere, but the caption to it was the video from the end of the 8-7 game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the caption was, Dan Dunleavy really needed to meet the moment for this game as the Sabres play-by-play broadcaster, and he absolutely did. And then I went back and listened to that call, and it's something that really stuck out to me after that 8th goal went in was you saying yourself, kind of breaking down the fourth wall, I cannot believe I just said 8-7.
Right.
Take us through that. Take us through that game. Take us through that moment. And did you feel, as you're calling a game, or sometimes when you're calling a game, given the enormity of the game and the situation, that you feel like you needed to meet the moment there?
Well, I trust. Listen, when I got to Buffalo, obviously the conversation always is around RJ and the bar that he set, and Ted Darling before him. Right, you have two Hall of Fame guys there. When I was in Toronto for 2 years with the Leafs, 2 years into my 3-year deal there, my first NHL full-time play-by-play opportunity, there was Joe Bowen, who's another Hall of Famer. So I've always had this kind of greatness right in front of me as I waited for an opportunity. And you watch, you learn, you listen, you realize you can't emulate them. But the one thing that they all did have, and I could talk about all three of them, but when you talk about RJ and Buffalo specifically, and the years that I was in Toronto, not working with the Leafs, but working at the Fan, the all sports radio station there for 20 years, when Joe Bowen had some playoff runs with the Leafs, and he was the radio voice solely at the time. He wasn't on television yet. But I just remembered the moments that they were able to call. And the one thing that I was, waiting for as a professional broadcaster in Buffalo was to have a moment, something that would lift the city, that would lift the fan base. And as we know, it had been 14 years without those moments really being available. We'd have the odd game or the odd moment where you could have fun with a call, or you could, I remember a comeback against San Jose, I think it was Jack Eichel and Evander Kane teamed up on a goal. It was a 2-on-1. And I got some comments from some guys in Toronto saying, hey, great call. And I remember at that time thinking, well, we don't really have many of that moments happening in Buffalo on a nightly basis now. The game you're talking about against Tampa, that was something that you don't plan for. It just kind of happened. I mean, you had a sense there'd be a bit of zest to it. There'd be a bit of extra energy in the game, just the way both teams were going in previous matchup. I believe we were in Tampa, and there was some animosity between the teams before the game coming to Buffalo. So that was on my mind, that this could happen, but not 8-7. So at the end of the game, specifically to answer your question on that call, I turned to, I believe it was Rick Maloney on that day, our statistician in the booth. And I'll do this quite often because I'll mention another name in talking about that game. But I like to connect with somebody. So whether you're looking out of the booth and you're trying to find a fan that's close to you, or you look for somebody in the booth who's living that with you, right? We all lived that game in the building. But Rick Maloney's on my right, and I turned to him, and I literally just sat back in the chair like this. Excuse me. And I looked over at Rick, and I said, I can't believe I just said 8-7 in a game in Buffalo on a Sunday afternoon or whatever it was. So it wasn't, you don't necessarily plan it. And I think RJ would have said the same thing. You don't plan it. It's just something that naturally fits the moment, right? Like the Brad May goal, it just fit the moment. And that was a radio call for Rick. And as that game kind of went back and forth a little bit, and then Tampa looked like they were going to run away with it, and then the way the Sabres came back, the energy, I mean, I'm a fan anyway, along as well as a professional broadcaster, I hope, but the fan in you comes out. And you just try to, you try to come out with something that the energy is obviously there. There's no secret sauce to it, I think, is what most guys or gals would tell you that do this for a living.
Yeah, I was at that game, and I can tell you right now. I mean, I wish I would have been able to hear the calls. I watched it back later the next day, but just you never had that feeling that you were out of that game. And just honestly, I don't know if I've ever, even in the playoffs, I would say, a couple of the games against Boston for sure, but
Mm-hmm.
the walls were shaking at KeyBank Center that night.
Yeah, I've never felt the building like that. And Rick would talk about it all the time. He'd say, "Listen, when you're going to get your shot here, when this building erupts, when the city erupts, you're going to feel it." And
yeah,
we never really did to that magnitude before. And to be honest, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the same thing. I've heard from people who've been multi-generational Sabres fans who said they've actually never felt the building like that. Now, I know it's been there and it's been over because of where this team has gotten to in the past. And I was in the building for a Stanley Cup run, covering it, again, as a member of a radio station up in Toronto. So I've been in the building for that. But I think it didn't catch the city by surprise, but it certainly, I think, maybe caught a generation of fans by surprise because they've never witnessed it before. Right? You're a 5-year-old kid growing up in Buffalo. You've lived 9-10 years of your life. You've never felt it. And that was the night they first felt it, and they first thought, this feels amazing. Can we do this again? And then we get to the playoffs, to your point, against Boston and against Montreal. You have the opportunity to live it again. So, I should go back and say thanks to anyone who said that. I did meet the moment, but for me, I'm not saying this to sound, overly gracious, but the team met the moment. I mean, the rest it's right in front of you. Just go with it. I think what you do learn in doing this job, and listen, we're all guilty of it at times, is we can be a bit stiff sometimes. You're doing things that's kind of formatted and by the book, and you're doing a lot of reads, and you're trying to carry a conversation in a proper way. But when a game actually takes over everything, like that one did, you just get swept away with it, and you allow yourself to get swept away with it. And then just do the professional broadcast part of it is, all right, I've got a way into this and I've got a way out of it. And as long as you don't think too much about how am I going to get out of this, just jump in and trust yourself, just like anything you do in life. And that's what I did on that day. So,
and I've always said it, it was a long, 14 years, man. It can't be understated. And I just want to say, how strong of a fan base Buffalo is, just between both teams. People don't even. It's incredible, and it's actually insane that this fan base as a whole, Bills, Sabres, Buffalo sports, we went through 31 years of no playoffs between both teams.
I know when you ended up, it's crazy. Yeah,
there was overlap, but nobody ever. I mean, for the most part, I would say nobody ever bailed. We didn't. I know I didn't. I can tell you so many great moments that I spent in that arena. I remember in '99 in the finals watching Jeff Sanderson score with one arm around Ed Belfour and watching. I just remember vividly. I'm 38 years old, and just it was an incredible feeling. The Derek Plant goal in Game 7 against Ron Tugnut, so many great times during those 05 to 07 teams. As short-lived as that success was. That building, like I said, can shake, and when this team is good, even when they're average, you can't turn a corner in downtown Buffalo, really anywhere in Western Europe for that matter, not seeing somebody representing the Sabres and showing pride in it. And it was so cool this year specifically when they started to go on that tear after the slow start. I work in a business where I don't work in retail. I work for a beverage company, but I'm constantly in large market stores. Supermarket type stores all day, and you start seeing people on game nights come out with their Sabres jerseys or Sabres hats, buying a 30 rack, going out. I'm going to watch the game. Can't wait. It was so refreshing to finally see, because really you had 2 generations of Sabres fans not have any clue what good hockey was and what it looked like. And I was so happy to see them finally realize that. And I see at the start of the show, we have a partnership with Fatty Beer. They did live for the first away game of both series. we did a live watch party with a giant screen. We shut down Main Street in Lancaster, and myself and Connor, our show, helped host it. And I want to say you even may have mentioned it on one of your broadcasts. I remember you commented on it on social media.
I did. Yeah, I did. I saw it. Yeah, I was on the bus after the game, and so to paint the picture, the team and the players and the coaches have a bus, and then Razor and I and the broadcast crew and the other staff members with the team. Some of the trainers and whoever else, anybody else that's on the trip. So we're on bus 2, but we're on the team bus leaving. And I just happened to check my phone because I'm wondering is there anything that'll show me what that felt like back in Buffalo? Because you're obviously in another environment and you're in your own world.
Yeah.
And I saw that clip. And what was so cool for us was sitting back and watching the clip because you could hear the call in the background. So, and everyone is just glued to the television set. So for somebody from Southern Ontario who did grow up with Buffalo television in my home, to actually hear yourself and as part of a broadcast team, be part of a moment where the entire city is just locked right in. And then the moment that goal was scored, the way everybody reacted, I just thought, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
This is the entirety of why you get into this business. It is the instantaneous joy that comes from a moment that you've absolutely been waiting for, in this instance, for 14 years. And that's incredible. And to back up a little bit, I think if we're being honest, I moved here 7 years ago when I made the decision to become part of this community and move to Buffalo full time, moved from Southern Ontario. And I do remember talking to people, if we're being honest, that they didn't stop following the Sabres, but they were starting to not renew season tickets slowly. I'm talking with my buddies. I'm not sure if we're going to do it this year. We're considering it. I think if everyone's honest with each other, it's only fair that, that gap in success, it did deal a little bit of a blow. But obviously what we saw this year and what was just announced a couple of days ago, yesterday, I believe. And speaking of, do you believe? That's all people need to do is give them reason to believe, and they believe again. And all of a sudden, the season tickets are sold out again for Buffalo.
Yeah.
And there's a waiting list. So yes, there was a gap. Yes, look, people have it's hard to earn money these days for a lot of people, and they're going to pick and choose how they spend it. And for a while, they hemmed and hawed a bit about the Sabres, but they're back, baby, as they say in this this world, and it's great to have them back.
And before I kick it back over to Hurls, like Buffalo fans were not that hard to win over, right? Like we get the moniker, the blue collar, city, blue collar town. It's true, it is. Yeah. If you show us that you care about what this means to us, and we never have to question the effort, and you're willing, like what Beck Malenstein does and Peyton Krebs those guys, those real glue guys.
Zach Benson's become your poster player in Buffalo all of a sudden, right? So
it's incredible. And if we never have to question the intangibles with you, we will walk down, we'll march down any dark alley with you and have your back and go to bat for you no matter who you are.
We saw it with the Blade Gang in Boston, so that was cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Getting back into the nitty-gritty of your job specifically, I went to Syracuse for broadcasting. I had a lot of friends that went into play-by-play broadcasting specifically, and you look at their call sheets for games. You look at the sheer amount of prep and research that goes into any single broadcast on a daily or even the night before, 2 nights before type basis. If you could just give us a little window into how much prep, how much research goes into each game, and do you have any specific quirks with any of your prep? I've seen broadcasters have different ways of setting up their call sheets. Is there anything that you found throughout your career that has made the process of calling live NHL hockey games a little bit easier?
It's a great question because I've tried everything to try to make it easier and less cluttered, but making sure enough information was there to call upon it when there was a moment to be able to use it. And in hockey, it's a bit different. So I've had the chance to call MLS soccer up in Toronto with Toronto SC for a number of years. I used stickers for all 11 players. And then as soon as that player was subbed in, I would put a sticker over top of the name. But, it's 11 guys on the pitch at the same time for the entirety of the game. There's no line changes or anything. So initially, I mean, understanding and having played and coached soccer, I was very comfortable with that, but I was trying to find the right broadcast fit. In hockey, it starts off for everybody, yes, with a sheet. You do your work at home. You put the rosters onto whatever format you want. You handwrite them down. Certainly early in my career, I would, and then you'd get to the rink. For me, on a regular basis, it was in the OHL in Toronto with St. Michael's majors, and we would not know the lineup until we got to the rink. So you would just, with whatever information you could find on the internet, you would just get a list of players down. You get to the rink, find out who's playing, and then maybe, I forget if it was 20 minutes or half an hour before the game, if you're lucky, you had a coach that would give you the lines, so that would help you a little bit. Now for me in the NHL, I can tell you I've already got the first week laid out of our schedule for the Sabres as far as the opposition is concerned. I mean, going into camp, there could be changes with the likes of Columbus and Chicago for the first two games, sure. But generally, their teams are pretty, you're 95% sure of who's going to be in their lineup. So I've already got prep done for those two games. In season, to answer your question, I will personally watch two games previous for each club. So the night before, you go have dinner, Razor have dinner somewhere on the road. I'll get back to my room. There's no party stories for you guys. I apologize for that because it's 10 o'clock. I'm in front of my computer and I'm watching the last two games the Flyers played before we play them in Philly. And that's just to get a sense on not only lineups, but any kind of tendencies that they're having, how certain wingers are attacking D, just so I have it. You're watching for lefties, righties, all these little things that you want to try to be able to pick up on because the game is so fast. And you're so, at least I am, and I'm sure most are, you're so concerned about not getting something wrong. And you do every game. You'll get a number wrong. You'll get a shooter wrong. You missed a deflection. The game is so quick and you're so high up in the NHL. That's the other thing. You're so far away from the game in 95% of the rinks that those two nights for me prior to a game, watching the opponent are very important. And then I actually bought, it's interesting, I had one of our fellow play-by-play members around the league, well, actually a couple have been interested, but I bought a new computer a couple of years ago, and Razors made fun of it. But it is, I can say the name, I guess. It's a Lenovo Yoga 9, and it's a double-screen laptop. So it's a laptop that doesn't have a keyboard. It's two screens, and you attach a Bluetooth keyboard to it. So I can stand that up in notebook fashion, and I have each team's roster on either side. And you can do it any way you want. You can do a line combos. You can just have the roster in whatever format you want. Everything now is touchscreen. So if I need instant information on someone and I'm not 100% sure on it, you can reach out, touch that screen, and that's going to pop up there for you. The tricky part about hockey, and I'm sure as your fellow play-by-play people will tell you about calling this game, the second you think you've got time to look down and glance for something that you didn't memorize, so memorization is still the key, that's when somebody took a shot and it rang off a post or the puck's in the net, and you just look up and you say, oh, they scored. What do I do with this? So that's the human aspect of it. So the preparation is obviously throughout the season, just stay on top of everything. And then before each game, a couple of games for your opponent and, your morning skate conversations you have with your guys. Many, many years ago, they would be a lot longer conversations than they are now. But the guys are available today, which is, very good for us. Anytime we want to talk to any of our players, they're available usually day before or day of a game. So it's easy to get some storylines from them. And this will be an interesting year to do that with, Alex Tuck not here, just to see who kind of picks up the extra load of leadership mantle and see how Zach handles the expectations now within his game. I know he has them within himself, but boy, oh boy, after that playoff, there's a lot of expectations on him. So there'll be a lot of storylines to follow throughout the year. And you just get that by going to them and having a brief conversation and trying not to get too much in their way and respect their space too is something I try to do. And I find that if you give players space when you want the time for them, then they'll give it to you.
Yeah, I could agree with you more. I do want you touched on the Tuck thing. I definitely want to get into that here in a minute or two. But one other thing I wanted to ask, you brought up RJ earlier, and I'd be remiss not to bring up, bring him up, but he had such a good relationship with his color commentary guys over the course of his career with Jim Lorenz and then Harry Neal after that, and now obviously Rob Ray, and they were just like a great duo, on the broadcast. How much fun has it been working with a guy like Rob Ray, and just kind of like how animated he is, and you never know what's going to happen with him. Obviously the puck to the head, and just the infamous audio from that, and just what's it been like working with Rob, a Sabres legend within himself. And a second part to that question is, we've seen crazier things happen with enforcers in the NHL, and I'm just going to put it out there because you saw Chris Neal get his number retired by Ottawa. Do you think that day will ever come in Buffalo for Rob Ray?
Well, he's Hall of Famed, right? So that happened. I think Buffalo would want to do it. When I say Buffalo, I mean Sabres fans and the city, right? I think there's no question there. Me predicting whether it would happen would be out of my control, so I don't want to make that prediction and put any heat on anybody. I'm not skirting the question. I think the city would love it. I think everybody in the organization would love it and understand it too, because as we some of us had a chance to speak a little bit in the video when Rob was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I can, again, only speak for myself, but, everything that I said about Rob. And when I say within the brief time that I've known him, I've known Rob for obviously a number of years, but working together through 14 years, for the first 7, it was off and on, right? And Rick and I were kind of splitting calls. Rick could do what he could do. And since then, Rob and I have just kind of taken off and done our thing. I will say this about the color commentator in any sport, in anything you do, the most important personality that you have along with you, because you want to have that knowledge that they have your back, even though Rob and I will throw jabs at one another, and mainly it's Rob throwing them my way, but lately I've had more confidence and understanding that it's okay for me to throw them back and have some fun, which is good. And there'll be a lot more this year, so stay tuned, because
can't wait.
Not shy with that anymore now that I know enough about the big guy. But I also know that he has my back, and he knows that I have his as well in a broadcast. So that's how that relationship goes with anybody. In Toronto, it was with Jim Ralph. Great guy, funny guy, loved working with Jim. He'd show me the ropes around the league. And then I get to Buffalo, and Rob does the same here. He shows me the ropes of how it is to be a Buffalo Sabre, what it means to be a Buffalo Sabre. It's one thing to watch games growing up as a kid in Georgetown, Ontario. It's one thing to continue following them. When I went to broadcasting, I went to college in Niagara with Rick's son, Chris Jennerette, and we were in the same broadcast course together. It's one thing to follow them, but then when you become part of it, then there's still a little bit of leadership that's needed, and that's what Rob offered me, still does to this day. We have a lot of conversations, between ourselves that obviously never get to air, and it's about players, it's about coaches, it's about how things were, how they are now. What's amazing to me about, we're talking about our relationship, but I'm really happy, first of all, and just grateful that I get to witness his relationship with the current players. And the beauty of having all of his fights and the odd goal that he would score in his career, the big one against Toronto, that they're able to be seen on YouTube. So these guys, the young players, can watch it, right? In their free time, they can sit down, they're on the plane with Rob Ray. If any of them says, this guy played for Buffalo, yeah, check out this video. And there's Razor with his shirt off, scrapping, fighting for his teammates. All of a sudden, they're coming to him on the flights. They're coming to him when we're standing at the rink. And everybody wants to talk to Rob at some point, say, hey, Razor, how's it going? There's a lot of advice that's given, too, at times, that stay between him and the player. I never even ask when I see it happening. So that also gives me great understanding into his value that remains within the organization. So that it's nice to bring that to the broadcast, that being, Rob's value to the team and his value to what I do. And, he'll look at me sometimes and he'll say, you're really fired up tonight, aren't you? You never shut up. You kept talking all night long. Boy, was I ever going to get a word in tonight? And I have to learn to fire back and say, look, didn't need you tonight. You could take the day off. It's a good game. So, it's a great relationship, and your color commentator or your analyst, it matters a whole lot.
It's funny you mentioned that you were Niagara College classmates with Rick's son, Chris. I was going to ask about that next. Yep. What type of relationship you had with the Jenneret family leading up into you taking the Sabres play-by-play role full-time, and then with Rick specifically. Obviously, he is one of the first and foremost legends of the city of Buffalo, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think that everybody looks upon him in an almost godly fashion, and filling those shoes, understandably, must have been pretty tough. What was your relationship like with Rick? What advice did he give to you? And what did you learn from him as you took over this role full time?
So the first time I met Rick face to face, and for anyone that's heard the story, I guess I should never apologize for telling it, but to me, it's kind of funny, especially for a guy who was into hockey when I'm in college and had already called some games at Niagara College. So I meet Chris and another guy named Kevin. I come from, again, Georgetown, which is about an hour away from Welland, Ontario. And I get dropped off and I go to college. So my first time away from home. So I go through high school in Georgetown. I get to college because I want to move away from home. I want to start doing my own thing. I get dropped off and I meet these couple of cool guys. They got long hair. They're both rockers like me, both Van Halen guys. And so we're kind of, in the same rock. We want to be rock DJs at the time. We're working in sports. So we just hang out. I mean, Chris gave me a ride to school I want to say every day. Either he or Kevin would come and pick me up. I didn't always have my Dodge Omni, pretty cool classic muscle car there with me. That's a joke, by the way, if you have to Google a Dodge Omni. So Chris or Kev would pick me up, and we would just hang out all the time. We enjoyed class together. Again, we're working in the same radio labs, we call them. So you're basically running the college radio station and doing everything within. You're either reading the news, or you're the rock jock for the day, or you're a news writer, or you're in production. So we're going through all that. And there was just some day that Chris mentioned, he said, "Hey, I'm going out to have dinner with my dad. Or lunch with my dad. He's part owner in a pub called Clancy's in Niagara Falls. Do you want to come along?" Well, you don't have to tell a college student or invite a college student to a pub, right? It's basically, of course I'm coming. So I hop in the car and we're driving out there. And I happen to say, "So what does your dad do for a living?" And he says, "Well, he's the voice of the Buffalo Sabres." And I said, "Wait a minute, what's your last name?" So I had never asked Chris, right? And I would be like this with most people even today. I would never ask anyone. Well, that's Chris and that's Kevin. And if anyone knew me, they'd say, "Well, what's her last name?" I said, "I don't know. I don't care. That's Kevin. That's Chris." So no, I didn't know that Chris Jenneret was Chris Jenneret, Rick Jenneret. I never put it together. And so it was only in the car at that moment that I thought, holy cow, I'm about to meet Rick Jenneret at a pub in Niagara Falls, and we're going to have a bite to eat, and we're going to have a couple of pints, and I'm going to get to talk to the guy. So we get to the pub, and Rick, I found out then, was just I'd only heard the Rick we all heard on television and radio, right? So I thought this guy was going to walk up and go, "Hey, Dan, how you doing?" And just this, far from it, like the quietest, kind of tamest voice ever, like, "Hey, Dan, how you doing?" Wait a minute, that's not the voice, but it was his voice, if you know what I'm trying to say. He was just, himself in that moment, and great to meet him. We talked briefly. Chris and I had lunch with him. And then that was the last time I saw him, obviously, for a number of years until I got hired by the club. So we fast forward many, many, many years in my career. I would never dare go see him in the booth if I was just covering a hockey game somewhere, because I didn't want to tread on anyone's turf that way. But it was an interesting first meeting. And then when I got here, I already had an understanding that Rick was not really a man of a lot of words, to be honest with you. You could talk to him for hours. I mean, if you sat down next to Rick, you could have a conversation about pretty much anything for hours, especially if you're at the bar and you're having a burger with him or having a few drinks. That was available to you. But he wasn't going to walk up to you and just tell you, "Hey, you should do things this way," or, by the way, next time you should do this or that. He kind of left it up to you to have that space to come to him if you ever did want to ask. So we would have conversations about the way the game used to be, a different era for him calling games. And just as we would go into new rinks, for example, and, I would ask him a lot maybe about the Montreal Forum, the old Boston Garden, and Detroit, and the Olympia, and then, Obviously, the Joe Louis Arena, I got to call some games in there with Toronto and then with Buffalo before they went to Little Caesars. So I would ask him mainly nostalgic questions. And the reason I would never ask him about how to handle anything was because I already had a general idea about the business and the job. But I also knew that it's, Rick's the one guy that there's no emulating what he can do. And you mentioned fill his shoes. I've said it many times. I never came to Buffalo or accepted the offer to come to Buffalo when it was offered full time to come and fill his shoes, because I used to host a show also in Toronto at the Fan, and it was called The Scoreboard. It would be every Monday to Friday before the morning show on sports radio, that it would be a half an hour recap of the sports the night before. And I remember telling the producer that was working with me as we're writing it, I said, if there is ever a Sabres game, we have to have a Rick Jeanneret call in the show. And it wasn't because I was an uber fan of the Sabres. I mean, we all were, but I didn't do it because it was Buffalo. I did it because it was Rick Jeanneret and it was so entertaining. You never knew what he was going to say on any given night. So you get here and you realize, look, there's no replacing Rick. There's no stepping in his shoes. All you can do is basically what I learned from him is that this is an entertainment job. You bring up the Tampa game, and games like that in the playoffs that was an opportunity for me to entertain, to jump in with the fans. Rick, obviously, when he had said his goodbye officially, he talked about the beautiful noise, right? And how the fan base was this beautiful noise. I hadn't really experienced it, but that game against Tampa, I turned around to Shani, who is our floor director, and she worked with Rick for many years. I turned around to Shani and I just spun this chair around and I said, I get it. I get what he was talking about, because up until that point, like we already talked about, I hadn't felt the building shake. And there wasn't a game just to wrap around my own enthusiasm for the team, my own desire to see this team do good, to just jump right in and just, can you believe what we're seeing here? And, just keeping things simple too, not trying to be Rick Jeanneret 2.0, because nobody can do it. It's impossible.
I always said that this past year's team was very reminiscent of the 05-06 team, in the sense that, like, yeah, you got some great moments like that, but like you never felt like they were out of a game, because you never questioned their effort or their willingness to win. And just,
Yep.
I like that show Shoresy, because but the one quote that they have in it, he goes, it's not about winning, it's about you have to hate losing more than you want to win.
Oh gosh,
you have to hate it. And
yeah.
I got that sense so much from this team. You
Yep.
mentioned that, like, RJ wouldn't go out of his way to, like, tell you how to do something one way or another, but, like, was there ever a piece of advice that he gave you that you took to heart, or that you held dear, or that you felt that you did utilize in the way you call games?
He sent me a text once after a call. I wish I could remember which goal call it was, and it might have been the Eichel to Kane, because it was Eichel carries, Kane berries, and it was just something, just rhymed, a simple rhyme, as the two of them rushed up the ice. The comeback win against San Jose at home, but there was a call, to maybe that one or something else, where he sent me a text and he said, "Great call on the winner," and I thought, okay, what hockey fan in Buffalo right now doesn't want to frame that and put it up on their wall and say, I wish I had a job right now, that Rick Jeanneret actually texted you and said, great job. So that's probably it's the first memory that comes to mind. I mean, it just did, and it always does. There was never a moment where he really gave me a piece of advice that I hadn't heard from anyone else before, to be honest with you. But the fact that the guy that put in 51 years here, that everybody loved, took the time in a game that I know he'd rather be calling, but he wasn't. That's the other side of the coin. When you work as a tandem with a broadcaster who is getting towards the end of his or her career, there's not a chance they don't want to be calling that game. And you're the person doing it. So, again, I was always very aware of that, and making sure I'm not treading on anything where I shouldn't be treading. Just do the job. And if he, again, like I said, he offered the great call, and I texted back right away, obviously, and I said, thank you very much. That means a lot coming from you. And that was it. There was, we don't high five each other next time we see one another or anything like that. But I would get on the bus a lot of times after games, I remember a couple of times getting on the bus in Montreal, and often when Rick was calling games, I'd be downstairs, kind of more of a rinkside thing, just waiting for anything that the broadcast might want from me, whether it's an interview with anybody or whatever. Just get on camera and do something with Brian and Marty or whoever it was at the time. But I do remember getting on the bus, and when I would have the chance to hear Rick's call, I felt it was important for me to keep telling him what you sounded amazing tonight, because I knew that it would mean a lot to me for someone to say that to me, that just because he's done it for 40, 50 years doesn't mean that still doesn't mean a lot to him. And it's something that I would do. And I've told other young broadcasters too, who have come up and who've been looking to come up along the way, that when you are kind of walking along, with or a step or two behind a legend or a Hall of Famer, I always wanted to make sure I left the door open for him to start the conversation, not me, except for getting on the bus once in a while, so saying, "You sounded great tonight," and then let him take it from there. But there was never going to be me initiating, "Boy, the team played great tonight. Hey, RJ, no, let him start the conversation, and then you kind of pick it up." And always, basically, what I'm trying to say is reminding him that I knew my place, and that my time would eventually come if I just did everything the right way, respectfully, stayed out of his way, and let him start every conversation and end every conversation. And in between, when he invited me in, then I'd be ready.
Getting into this season a little bit, I've seen a little bit of chatter online about the hope is not a strategy. You can't rely on development as they did last season to eventually break the drought. With Alex Tuch gone, you mentioned his leadership void. With Bowen Byram gone and the replacements coming in, what is your general feeling about this group going into the 2026-2027 season? And do you feel there is a way, when they say hope is not a strategy, but relying upon development, do you feel that this organization, this front office, this coaching staff has put enough time in with this group of young players that they could somehow replicate that magic that we all felt this past season?
So if the team didn't have the season that they had last year, I would say to you, I'm a little concerned. But because of the season they had last year and how it happened, I'm much more confident. I think I mentioned just yesterday, maybe on Sabres Live with Marty, filling in for Brian for this month, Brian Duff, for those that are just dropping in. I said I feel confident that they can live without Alex Tuch. Would you rather live with him 100%? That's a no-brainer. But I'm confident that they can live without him, because this group had to figure out, and we talked about the hating to lose part. That's definitely in Rasmus and Tage. All right, we're just going to start with those two guys. I'm sure it's in others as well, but I'm going to start with the two leaders that are not Alex Tuch anymore, who's gone. They absolutely hate to lose. And what has to go with that is a realization, because other guys have hated losing. I used to be in the hallway again when Rick was calling games in Buffalo, and I'd be down by our room, and guys would come down. They'd be breaking sticks and throwing equipment around. But the team was no good. They weren't getting any better either. I mean, the frustration wasn't turning into, okay, I'm going to put in the necessary work or commitment to turn it around. And I'm not saying that they didn't. It just wasn't turning into it. What this team did last year, when they had to turn it around, and they did, and to me, they figured out as a group, okay, to win, this is how we have to play. And I mean a singular we. This group of Buffalo Sabres can be a 100-point hockey team without Alex Tuch, in my opinion, if they play the same way they did last year. If for whatever reason, one or two players don't play the same way next year, someone feels they got to play a bit differently, someone feels they got to do more, someone feels they need to be more defensive, someone just basically what I'm saying is you should be able to walk into that room this year. Yes, Tucky, as they call him, isn't there. Doesn't matter. You've got to play the exact same way. And if you do, you're going to be successful. Were his goals timely at times? Did he have sweet passes? Yes. Did he have leadership? Of course. Was he great on the penalty kill? Yes. But the development part of your question, I do think that we've seen enough of Noah Ostlund. I do think we've seen it when he's 100% healthy and kicking. I think we saw and love what we saw from Josh Doan, who really just cracked the, talk about working for an establishment, a brewery company. He just popped the lid on the bottle. He hasn't even poured it all out yet. So those two in particular, when you look at, potential second line guys, they could be drivers. I mean, Austin seems to make players with him, I'm not going to say better, but play at their best. The better part for Austin, to be nice to see if he continues to expand his game. Doan, I just think he's a one of a kind player. I can't wait to see where he takes his game and his career. The veteran obviously remains Jason Zucker in the lineup. I don't think you're going to see guys like Malensine and Krebs play any different. So that's what makes me feel really comfortable there. And then as the season goes along, I'm 100% confident that if Yarmo sees there needs to be a tweak somewhere or somebody has gotten away from their game, there'll either be a conversation or a move made to make sure that the way they play remains intact. And that comes right down to goaltending too. I personally don't care. If one goaltender goes on an 8-game run, needs a break, and the next guy goes in and he goes on a 5-game run, I'm okay with that. I know the conversation maybe here we'll get to some point about goaltending and is a 3-headed monster something that we can live with again? Well, aside from the one that got away in Game 7, and yes, there was a bounce goal that went in, but you hope the players learn about being dialed in and not letting those happen again. You kind of give it to them one time, even though it hurts. But if it happens again, then you've got problems. So I'm just really confident in how the team played. If they didn't play that way, if they backed their way in last year, I'd be concerned. But they didn't back their way in. They kicked the door down. They punched Tampa right back in the face. Tampa came in to punch them in the face, and the Sabres said, "Fine, you're going to get punched right back." So they're not afraid of Tampa. Yes, Florida's a bit of an unknown because they've added and they get Barkov back. The Leafs are, who knows what they're going to be. They could be better. They could be a jumble under new head coach and a lot of new players in their lineup. And with the number one overall, with everyone expecting 20 goals from him, go ahead, expect it. I mean, good luck to him. But, I still see the Sabres as being a nightly threat to any team they play in the Atlantic Division. And to me, that's what matters. Kill your division, wipe them clean, and make sure. And, well, every game will feel like a playoff game in Buffalo this year when it's an Atlantic Division team. It's going to be crazy in that building, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, there's one thing you can't teach. It's heart, and Sabres have it. In Strohs, it's incredible. And
personality. I mean, Zach Benson, right? You guys know.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have personality on the team. And, Tage says some things. He's having fun at Zach's expense, and Zach understands it. Zach's pretty young. He could take it the wrong way. It could create a rift, but he doesn't. He understands that, hey, there's got to be all sorts of different characters on the team. And if this is the character they want to make me out to be when I'm just being myself, go ahead, boys. Whatever glues this team together, I'll do it. You talk about the 05-06 team. Anytime you talk to guys who are involved in that, of course, for me, it's talking to guys like Razor a lot. He'll talk about the different personalities that are on teams like that and how no one person is the same, but the way they play for each other is exactly the same way. And that's what the Sabres, I believe, found last year.
You brought up Zach Benson's name, and when you talk about heart, determination, hating to lose, you think about guys like Beck. I became a massive fan of Beck Malenstein this season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed, it would have been hard because the sign was so massive. We were the ones that made that giant yellow sign that said "Welcome to Malentown population" because he wore the number 29, so it felt like we were paying homage to Pominville. And we kept the population were the number of hits he would have throughout the season. We just kept on adding with blue tape. But those are the types of players that when you talk about Buffalo and the history and just you think about those late 90s teams, 96, 97 specifically, the hardest working team in hockey. Again, you get those vibes from this team. You bring up Zach Benson. Also, an all heart guy, all personality guy. I know between two stalls will always be Jeff Skinner's, but if the Sabres social media team was smart, they need to do something with him and Josh Doan, because I think that would be absolutely must watch TV, whatever you want to call it. But getting back to Zach Benson, and you talk personality, that guy was just born to be a Sabre. I think he left money on the table with the contract he signed. My opinion personally, and I know how valuable a player like that is. What type of step? I mean, I would assume you would expect him to take big steps forward compared to the season he just had. I believe he had 50 plus points, but you could argue he was your best forward in the playoffs. You know, you
Mhm.
never questioned his grit, his determination, and on one of the biggest stages of his career. But just like, you know, how valuable of a player is he to this team going forward? I mean, I don't think it really needs to be said how valuable it is, but like you see guys like Corey Pronman from the Athletic come out and rank him like 124th on their players under 23, which is the most criminal thing I think I've ever seen in my life in a ranking. Your thoughts on that and your thoughts on Zach Benson? Because I'm just excited to hear a guy who gets to, you know, every single night call his goals, you know, talk about his play and his grit and his determination.
Well, let me put it back to you. Does Zach Benson, based on how he finished the season and how he played in the playoffs, does he look like a 13 goal scorer?
I think he's a 20 goal scorer, 20
Exactly.
plus.
Exactly. So
You know,
the potential is what I'm getting at, right? So, and again, this is where I'm pretty sure if you're Yarmo, you're sitting back thinking, okay, we lost Alex Tuck, we lost that point production, but in everyone's mind, and also in Zach Benson's mind, he is much more than a 13 goal scorer. If he plays a little bit closer to the net, if he plays maybe a little more selfish with the puck. The other thing with him, you looked at his 30 assists last year. I mean, how thankful do you think Tage Thompson was on half of those? And even Alex Tuck with those little short side dips there at the post, right? Where you just kind of lay it out there. You take the hit behind the net to make the play. The guy's unbelievable. His hockey sense is off the charts. I remember talking to some people in the scouting business about Zach after the draft, and they mentioned just what it says, you know, everyone said it who had followed any of his junior career, saying what a great player the Sabres have. And it was always about his hockey sense, his understanding of the game and where to be. The part about him being willing to really just step up and get in anybody's face is something we all found out together in Buffalo. And that's, you said earlier that it, you know, if you play a certain way in Buffalo, you're going to be loved. I would like to think most hockey markets or sport markets would say the same. But because we're here in Buffalo and I understand exactly what you're saying, there have been a number of players who've come through Buffalo in my 14 years that even along with Razor, we would have conversations with guys and just say, if you just do this tonight, you will be a public icon in this town. And we weren't talking about doing anything stupid. It would be about standing up for somebody or whatever other scenario you want to put out there. But a lot of times it would just be about standing up for teammates. So Zach Benson will muck it up, stand up for you, assist, set up goals. And then he is really your prototypical, if there is such a thing, but I guess in this era, a playoff hockey player. He is a bug. He's not going away. He is going to continue to come at you. And I like where he plays his game. He plays it down low in and around the net. And I think if we see him getting to that area in front of the net a little bit more often, then yeah, that 13 goals easily for me becomes a 20-goal season. I don't even doubt it. I could be wrong, but I'm just saying I don't personally doubt that he's a 20-goal scorer. And that would help make up some of the difference that we're talking about. And then we already talked about character. You just need people to be themselves and be, listen, we just lost Dolly Parton. And what did she always say to everyone? Be comfortable being you. And if anyone tells you to be something else, then forget it. Shut it out. So, you know, they call him Benny. I don't call him that on a broadcast out of respect. It's Zach Benson, as far as I'm concerned. But Benny, for this conversation, he's going to be himself every day. And I think his teammates count on that. From everyone from Zucker to Thompson to Matthias Samuelsson to Krebs. You know, when Byram was here, he was another character. I loved Bowen Byram. He'd always come in with a smile and an attitude on his face and just a great energy. So that'll be missed in the team. But then you had other guys come in late, like Sam Carrick obviously got hurt, but another guy who came in, and when he saw what he was becoming a part of, he was so excited, right? And now we're going to get him for hopefully a full, healthy season.
Ricky Sinecki.
Yeah, just have that personality. And I think, too, we saw glimpses. Listen, Jack Quinn puts a lot of pressure on himself, and probably rightfully so, because you're here to be a goal scorer. And it was, you know, nice to see him get up to 20 last season. I think there's way more in his arsenal there. He should be a 30-goal scorer. I've said that this offseason already. It's up to him to accomplish that, but he has the tools to do it. He just has to every single night get to spots to score those goals, take the shots, be a little selfish sometimes. And I think we saw him get more and more comfortable. This happens. These guys are getting a little bit older. They're not old, but as you get older, you just get more comfortable with being who you are, right, around your teammates. and that's really important. So Tage will lead the way with leadership, along with Rasmus Dahlin and Matthias Samuelsson. And the three of those guys, their unique personalities, they're nothing like one another. But when you put them all together, and the compete and the fire they have within each other, and the respect they have for one another, and the love to win and the hate to lose, like I say, that's why I feel good about the season, even though you lost a couple of guys. We did gain a couple too, so let's not forget that.
Last thing for me, because this is a goalie podcast at the end of the day, me and Duane, both goalies. You mentioned the 3 goalie rotation. We talked about it last week. We think that there's an opportunity for Colton Ellis to potentially play more games this season, to potentially take some of that weight off of Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen and friend of the show, Alex Lyon, into the season. He's getting a little bit older. As a 34-year-old goaltender myself, I know that it feels like my hip is going to detach from my body. He's obviously in much better shape than I am, but he is getting to that age where the physical wear and tear of playing the game as long as he has is going to start to take an effect. What do you project from Colton Ellis this season? And I would be remiss not to mention the name that Sabres Twitter is obsessed with for 4+ months now, Connor Hellebuck. Do you think that's a possibility before the season starts? And as you mentioned, let's say something's not going well. Is that someone you think Jarmo could potentially reach out and try to make a deal for even midseason?
So here's another thing you learn when answering questions. You use the word could, Jarmo. So the answer definitely is yes, he could. Do I know if he will? I can honestly tell you I don't know if he will. I can also say to you, I don't disagree about Ellis, who played in 16 games last year, and his goals against and his save percentage were just fine, right? When you're looking and comparing to other goaltenders around the league. I've liked the development I've seen in him. I know his teammates like him. I know I like the way he approaches things. I don't know the totality of what he's done in the summer. I'd have to get into his head a little bit when he gets back about how he views his role this year compared to last year, because the one thing, it's a good point you bring up. You don't want, at least if I'm coaching or managing a team, I don't want my number 3 goaltender who was good last year to come back and just want to be the same. I know it sounds silly to say, but I want him to actually want to be better, and I want him to tell me he wants to push somebody out, right? So it's the 3 of you can get along, but you want your goaltenders to want the net. And for me, if you're Colton Ellis and he's still 25, in October he'll be 26. That's he's getting close to prime time for showing us what you got physically, right? You're growing into your body now. You're probably at your quickest. Your reflexes are probably at their best. So those numbers should be career best for you. So I'd like to see him, from 16 to say he should at least get 20 games. Yeah, but I don't know how many you're expecting he could get, but maybe he gets up to, I don't know, what are you looking at as goalies? Are you thinking he's getting a 30-game season? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just wondering where your thoughts at.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we were talking about the conversation when you say 3-headed monster, 3 goalie rotation. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's 82 games, right? Like 84 now. Wow, that completely escaped me going into the season, which is crazy. You're hoping from 40 from UPL. I think you're hoping from maybe 20 to 25 from Alex Lyon, maybe more, depending on how many UPL plays.
So
I would say 20 plus from Colton Ellis. I think would be a successful season for him.
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, 16 to 20 is not a huge jump, so I'm with you there. That's what I was curious what you were thinking. So yeah, a 20, 24 is a good number. If we put a 25 on it, it kind of polishes it up a little bit. So 25, and if he's playing really good, to your point, and looking good, don't be surprised if he gets 30 games. And then obviously if it got to that point, you might see a scenario where, especially if the team is playing well, and if there's a need again, going into deadline time, or a team, Vancouver already needs a goaltender, right? So there's going to be teams looking at clubs with 3 goalies and seeing if anybody wants to make a deal there so they can start the season with a goaltender that's played in the NHL and has had any kind of success at all. So I got to give all 3 guys credit, though, for being around them, traveling, and just, having conversations with them. Alex Lyon, amazing guy, as you say, friend of the show. Colton Ellis is 100% human being. He's just a great guy. And then Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. That's a guy who knows there's a lot of pressure on him. And he understands that it's on him to continue growing his game and get to a level where he just looks like an unbeatable goaltender. There's nights that he does look unbeatable. And I think for him, the next level of growth for him is, look, if you want to get rid of any talk about Connor Hellebucks, every night you go in, you can maybe not win every game, but you don't have bad nights, right? You don't have an off night. You're the one that keeps your team in it every night. And then that's how you quash those discussions, because I would think any general manager, if you can have goaltending like the Sabres did last year and also have it work for you in a Game 7 scenario. Unfortunately, it didn't last year. I'm not putting it all on Luukkonen. I'm just saying, if you're looking for that extra moment, that extra save to climb the ladder, if you can do it and not have to spend $8 to $10 million on one player, then you've won, because you filled another roster spot somewhere with that money that you needed an extra forward, some strength in the lineup or whatever it is. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. That's for sure. That story will never go away as long as you have three of them in the lineup.
Yep. Thatcher Demko obviously dealing with the injury issues that you mentioned in Vancouver. And I don't think it's, I mean, obviously they know Colton Ellis. You mentioned Jack Quinn earlier. Both those guys, they're up for a contract extension starting on January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not lost on them. So they know the pressure there from a contractual standpoint. The pressure there is there to perform. I always thought Colton, I like to call him chaotic, because he is. He'll dive headfirst at pucks.
It felt like he was watching a lot of Alex Lyon clips or something, right?
Yeah, he's very, very chaotic for such a big guy too. And I would love. This is a huge, huge opportunity for him. And I wouldn't say any single goalie on this roster has the starting position by the throat, right? So if he steps into training camp, has a good, the preseason's much shorter, but we've seen they're not afraid to go with the hot hand. If Colton Ellis comes out after a goalie, whether Alex Lyon or UPL, whoever it might be, it's his turn. It's Colton Ellis' turn in the rotation, and he goes on a heater. They're not afraid to ride the hot hand, as they should be. And I'm excited to see what he brings to the table this year, given hopefully a bigger opportunity. And on the Colton Hellebuck comment, would I love to see he bringing in a gold medalist and a Vezina winner, arguably the best goalie in the world today, onto a team where, in my opinion, up until about 10 years ago, we were so spoiled at the position for such a long time. Absolutely. I would love to see Connor Hellebuck come to the Sabres. Even at his age and his cap hit, but
I tell you, your perfect world is, listen, to be, yes, you'd like to see that caliber of player at any position, goaltender, 100%. For me, my perfect world is Luukkonen turns into that. I don't know if it happens, right? Someone could tell me, look, give up. It's not going to happen. That's up for Luukkonen to prove that it does or doesn't happen. He's going to get the opportunity again at this point anyway, as we have this conversation. So, that to me is your perfect world, because you've got a younger goaltender who you could then, if he grows into that, you've got him for a number of years. Hellebuck for me, you could get him for, I don't know how many years he'd want to sign or stay for, or whatever's on the contract left here. I haven't looked at that specifically, but either way, listen, get us back to Game 7 and where it's an issue again, and then let's have that conversation again.
Dan, I can't express how much I appreciate your time. I got a couple comments in here. One from Larry. I live in Virginia, so I listen to the more games than I watch. Appreciate how you help me visualize the action. I imagine as a guy who, especially in the day of, pretty much where you can find a link and watch a game anywhere, as a broadcaster, do you like hearing that when people who do listen on radio only, how much you help them paint the picture?
Love it, because that's my background. It was RJ's as well, right? We came from a radio base, and I think that anyone who gets into the business, and now we're talking about Syracuse and broadcasting, that I remember first starting out at Niagara College, and you're trying to figure out, do I go television or radio? And I remember the television people at Niagara asked me, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I'd love to do sports play-by-play or broadcasting in any way. Or I wanted to be a rock and roll DJ and just hang around rock stars all the time and go to concerts. That was going to be one of the two was going to be my life. I had made up that choice. And they had mentioned, well, don't jump into TV and don't go reading teleprompters. Go to radio and figure things out behind the mic and develop your own personality, basically. And the thing you learn in play-by-play and radio, and we do it now, we'll have 14 of those games this year. You guys just found out today the national schedule came out.
Yep.
So even though those games are on national TV, Rob and I still call those on radio to be determined where yet, but we'll be doing it. I enjoy painting the picture because when I'm calling a game, I'm taking myself back to how I want to view a game. And this sounds, I'm not bashing anybody else who does this job, but I will say that I came from a culture and environment where you call the game. It's the play-by-play. You describe where the puck is. I've had producers saying you're over-calling it, meaning left circle, right circle, over the right, looking over his right shoulder and all this stuff, and white tape on his stick, all the stuff you do in radio, I will still often try to do in television to paint a picture. And I'm told at times I should back off from that a little bit and just don't worry about the radio. But it's just in my blood. I do worry about people that are listening, not worrying about them, but because I want to make sure that they understand what is going on. And I'll tell you what, it's my wife, Brenda, who reminds me, when she's watching the game at home, she's also reading a book. She has her phone with her. So now you're in a generation of where not many people are just sitting watching one thing on a screen anymore. They're watching, right? They could be watching this podcast right now, and they're also watching on a half screen somewhere else, whatever sporting event's going on somewhere right now. They're watching a basketball game, whatever they're watching both. They could be listening to us and watching the basketball game. So you have to be aware, in my view, even, in 2026 going into the 26-27 season, that TV basically is the radio. And I don't want to, Rob and I talk about this. We do have conversation, but we don't want to have it be a conversation broadcast. And I know some people like it, and that's enjoy it because you can find it pretty much everywhere. But it's just a classic radio call where you guys can chill out and gals chill out and just kind of listen to the game and watch it. And if you don't want to listen, then you can drift off somewhere. But the minute you hear my voice go up here, all of a sudden you're going to go back to the screen, right? Yeah. It's all about inflection and pitch and when you go there. And you can't stay there. You learned this in Syracuse too. You can't stay there for an entire game. You can't call a game up here the whole game. The face-off is in center. I mean, guys and gals, you can have a high pitch to your voice. You still have to ride the moments in a game because that's when people are going to turn around. They're either going to look at the radio and go, something's happening here, or they're going to look back at the TV and say, what am I missing? Or what did I miss, right? And at least they'll get the replay of it. So, no, I do appreciate those words. They matter.
Well, you don't have to mention any broadcast specifically, but a couple of those national broadcasts that you mentioned do feel like a podcast sometimes. We've mentioned that on our show. I've seen a lot of conversation online about it, but it is frustrating. It seems like there is a complacency involved about not doing the prep and the research that we spoke about. And I cannot tell you how much it means, even for me, not living in the Buffalo area. Mm-hmm. I can go to ESPN Plus, I can grab the Sabres broadcast, and I can listen to you guys rather than listening to anything else on largely a season-by-season basis. So 14 national games is what it is. But the descriptive nature of play-by-play, as you said, is where the profession is at its heart. And we really appreciate you sticking to that because I do think it is great these days.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I could go back to your question about RJ. What did he teach you? He didn't jump out and tell me anything, but he called the game the same way, right? You knew what was going on. People would listen on radio. He'd be on TV. I've heard stories from so many people. And, just because of my background and training. And listen, I called a lot of hockey games before I got to Buffalo. They were at obviously different levels at World Juniors and Olympics and World Championships, OHL, Memorial Cup, Canadian Hockey League, Quebec League, Western League. So I had a bit of a road to understand both on radio and television and have enough people tell me at that development level, which I still feel I'm developing, little tips along the way. And a lot of those would be from producers, to be honest with you. Hey, try this next time or try this, or sometimes you'll just try stuff and it doesn't work. Believe me, I've tried to have some fun since being in Buffalo too, and there'll be a goal call or two you look back on and think, oh, that really didn't work as like I wanted it to. So it happens, but that's called creativity. You got to have the guts to go for it, and no matter what you do. So you guys, same with your podcast here, you had to have the stones to just jump right in and do it. And have success with it. And it looks like you're doing a really good job of that. So, because nobody has a produced intro like that on a podcast that's not successful.
Shout out to Dave from Built in Buffalo. He's the one that helped us with that. We actually do a live post game show. I mean, Connor, I don't know how many we did this year, including playoffs, but like even the West Coast games, which is easier for him because he lives in California. But you know, I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes on the West Coast after a big win, and there were times where you know. I don't know if you were there on the planes back when the fans started to show up at the airport, but we were there for that too.
I was there. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that was cool. That meant a lot to the guys too. I mean, listen, they've seen it. You can't kid yourself. They've seen the Bills receptions when they get back. It's a little bit of different layout for us when we get back. We land. We're at the same airport when we land, as you know, in a little bit of a different spot. So it's a little harder to have as many hundreds or thousands just kind of right up against the fence like that when we come in. But certainly the road was lined well as the playoffs went on when we came home, and the guys were they were talking about it. So it meant a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really did.
I'm not ashamed to admit it. After the 10-game winning streak, when I think they lost game 11 on the road, and they came back, I was one of two fans that.
Yeah, I remember that. You were there? Okay.
I was there. I was one of the two fans, and it was raining, and like honestly,
it was.
I didn't care because it's like, you know, I don't care if they lost because I just went through 14 years of losing, and I want to show these guys that how much it means to me and it means to this city. And I know if they keep doing this, 2 people will turn into 20, 20 will turn into 80, and so on and so forth. And it was so cool that we brought up Zach Benson and Matthias Samuelsson. In those guys, you see it in their faces. They really appreciate it. Guys, especially a guy like Sammy and Darlene, who have been here through nothing but losing, and then Benny, who just. I truly believe if he could have got out in the car like Darlene, he would have, in the midst.
Matthias Samuelsson might be the most unsung player in the NHL for the way he came back last year, and not just the way, but the totality of what he meant to the team, and the moments that he provided with timely goals and the way he was jumping into the play. And for a guy who, listen, I think we all watched him every time he come back from an injury and just kind of, shoulders up and hoping, like, please come out of the corner, please come out of the corner, please be okay. And as the season went on, you're just kind of like, oh, thank goodness, like, he's good. This guy is really good. So, everyone talks about key defensemen in the NHL last year. I know we have Buffalo glasses on here, but I will tell anyone in any interview throughout the season that, if Samuelsson doesn't have the year that he had last year, you can say that for a lot of guys. But listen, you know where you're going to get out of Tage Thompson. You know where you're going to get out of Rasmus. You know what you expect out of Benson. There was a hope that Samuelsson could bounce back from something we once saw, right, when he broke into the team. And boy, did he ever say, yeah, don't forget me, I'm here.
I love, like, you see the players when they come into a game, they're all dressed up, head to toe, just to the nines. Sammy, he's a hockey player, dude. He comes in sweats, a hoodie, he doesn't care at all. Yeah, whatever. Take your pictures with a coffee in his hand. That takes me back to the days, like, of coming to the rink, man. You look like a bag of shit. Who cares? No, I'm not here to impress anybody. Samuelsson, I truly believe the Sabres have the 2 very best contracts in all of hockey on their roster right now, in both Tage Thompson and Matthias Samuelsson.
I think about that daily,
Yeah, and then hopefully at some point, Zach Benson and Josh Doan, who, again, I truly do believe they left money on the table. Dan, I don't want to hold you up for too much longer. I just looked at how long we've had you on, and I apologize if we kept you on for too long, man.
I'm a talker. It's my fault. You're good.
Oh, no, it's incredible. Make sure we pass. But, I mentioned before with our post game, like in years past, it was so we averaged probably out of 82 games, 65 post games a year. We sometimes we wouldn't do the West Coast games because it was tough, and it was tough to come on here and talk about those teams and how bad it was. And we would get a great turnout because fans like us, they wanted to vent their frustrations and whatnot. And this season was such a breath of fresh air, and our audience and the people who stuck with this show on the post games. I mean, I guess we did over 80 post games, including playoffs this year, easily. And the family, I call them family. we call them the peanut gallery here in the chat. The family we gained throughout this past season, especially, I'm so grateful for it. And you've been a big part of that because we've played some of your calls on our post game shows. And to your point that you paint such a great picture during these games. The only last question we got in the chat too was, I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but he asked a couple times already. Jeremy wanted to know what it was like to call that game 1 versus Boston. Like with the atmosphere.
You know what? It was a pinch me moment because it was actually happening, but the lead up, it was interesting. You talk about, moments and calls. And I would always think about when people would talk to me about Rick and they'd say, yeah, he was great, but he had all these moments he could work with, right? You had to have the moment for now do you believe these guys are good, scary good. You had to have the moment for Mayday. You had to have the game in the moment. And we never had them. We weren't getting them. And then this year when it was looking like we were going to clinch, it's funny, this comes up now because I haven't thought about it since the day before we're about to play our next game. And we were on the road, I'm trying to picture the city. I'm bad at this, but Detroit lost a game. So we won because they lost and because now we're in the playoffs. So there wasn't that game that we had to win to clinch. So as a broadcaster, you want to have that game where, what are you going to say? First time they clinched a playoff spot in 14 years, right? What are you going to come up with? So that never came. And I remember sitting in my hotel room thinking, we clinched. Like, it felt so weird thinking, why are you upset that they clinched, man? So, we get in and we call our game and it's, the Sabres clinched earlier today. So then that just became a game where you didn't want anyone to get hurt all of a sudden.
Yeah.
The clinching was done. And it was all of a sudden this mountain of, oh my God, we're freaking out. We're in that we wanted to climb on the air became, okay, everybody. Darlene, Thompson, nobody get hurt here. Samuelson, just get through the game, get to the playoffs. Then we get to Boston. And what was nice about that was, a first time, obviously, for the city, knowing that it was a series that was winnable, but you'd have to fight to win it. And then coming home and even being in Boston, like I told you about the Blade Gang, seeing those guys there. I mean, just seeing how well the Sabres fans travel really well anyway, but, seeing and hearing them on the road in the playoffs and when we would score in the opponent's buildings was something. Even in Montreal, there were a few that made it in. Might have been hard to hear them, but I think the game 6, you could hear them, the Sabres fans in Montreal, if I remember correctly. Marty and I called that one on radio. I don't know. It was magical. It was, like I say, it was pinch me moments, but I certainly hope they continue. And a reminder, when we get to the playoffs next year, after the first round, we'll be on radio again. So just, when you have your street parties there, sync up the radio call, wherever that's going to land, and put that over top of your television call, and Razor and I will bring it.
At the Fatty Beer watch party, we absolutely will be for the road games. When you brought up clinching, I know you're a big dog guy. So am I. I have a 95-pound husky.
Oh my gosh!
After Dominic Hasek, of
course. I had a husky once too. Cool.
Oh, in the summer it's a terror with the shedding. And then I have a 15-pound wiener dog named Daisy that I rescued a few years ago. When they clinched, because I have a gated-in yard, I thought she got out. And I couldn't even enjoy at the moment when they clinched because I thought she got out of the yard. And I live in Tonawanda. There's a big park across the street off the water. I'm and my girlfriend were running all over the place trying to find her, screaming her name. Everybody online is celebrating the first time the Sabres clinching the playoffs in 14 years. Turned out Daisy never left the yard. She was my neighbor who I share a driveway with. He's a pack rat, and she hopped onto. He has a trailer parked in our yard. She hopped onto the wheel well. And there's a tarp kind of draped over it. And she was hiding underneath the tarp for 2 hours. And I'm like looking at her because when I finally found her, I heard her tail wagging, hitting the tarp. And I'm like, 14 years I've been waiting for this.
You just gave me a goal call. I just wrote it down.
Yeah. Did you? Wait, what?
Yeah. Well, it's an easy one. If it's a big one and a big moment, it'll be Daisy's left the yard.
Oh my goodness!
And Daisy's left the yard. Everybody, what's he talking about?
I'm gonna leave it on that.
Yeah,
Dan,
true fans will know.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
true fans of the pod will know.
The pod
Dan,
will
you are
know.
always welcome. Beers on us at Fatty Beer if you ever want to stop.
I'm in
by
the
and have
NA
a
world now, so if you got some NAs there, then
They do have NAs. They do have NAs, and they have great food. And
Razor and I are all into NA beer, so
yes,
we'll load up on that.
they do have those. I mean, Connor will tell you firsthand. It's an incredible time out down there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I apologize we took up you for too long, but you're welcome back anytime. Like I said,
I held out on you because I missed you last week, so I owed you a couple of shows.
Yeah, for those who don't know what he's talking about, Dan Dunleavy big timed us last week.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, let's tell the story how it happened. It was a Twitter invite, okay?
It was.
And to be honest, I'm on Twitter. I try to be not on Twitter, basically. I'm on Twitter because of the job. I'm over it. I'm done. I'm good. I'm not anti. I'm just over it. I don't. But a lot of good can come from it. And obviously, you sent me a message, but I just never got back on Twitter, so I didn't put it in my calendar. I didn't do anything. And
It's fine.
All of a sudden, I look in and I'm thinking, oh, I got a message here. What do you mean I missed something? So you'll always have that one on me. I apologize.
But you're fine.
We've done 90 minutes here, so I hope we made up.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. Really appreciate you coming on. This has been a really treat, super special, and can't wait to hear all the calls from this season and moving forward. So
yeah,
again, thanks
appreciate
a lot.
you. Where in LA are you?
Santa Monica.
Really? Okay.
To be exact, I'm about a block away from the Bills bar out here, and we turned it into a Sabres bar for the playoffs. So
nice.
Shout out, and I'll be at the game in LA on Halloween, so we'll see you out here.
All right, you're in Nickelback territory.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
All right, guys.
Appreciate you, Dan. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
Not a problem. That was Dan Dunleavy. Hurls. What an episode with him. I kind of feel bad we kept him on as long as we did.
Yeah, season's gonna start soon.
Yeah, and he's knocking off the rust with us, right?
Yeah,
getting the vocal cords ready and whatnot. But what a conversation, and we're sure gonna get him some free stuff from our team store, no doubt. Did he mention that he's from California? Or was he just commenting on you being from California?
Yeah, no. He's from Georgetown.
I didn't think so.
Which is outside of in Ontario, outside of Toronto.
Okay. Well, guys, for those of you who tuned in, thank you for following along. And I appreciate you guys. Remember, this is brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western New York locations. If you need a beer, get on order Fatty Beer. Let them know that Two Goalies One Mike sent you. And, of course, as always, Impulse Physical Therapy, Western New York. Hey, Western New York, it's time to ditch the physical therapy clinics that treat you like you are just another number and step into a world where you are at the center of your care. Impulse is owned by Buffalo's only board-certified sports physical therapist. They work one-on-one with science-backed technology like 3D motion analysts and, of course, force plates to help you exceed your goals and become the healthiest, strongest version of yourself. So step in. Come experience the Impulse difference today and mention this for a discounted $77 assessment. Thank you both again to Fatty Beer Company, Fatty Beer Company, Impulse Physical Therapy, Western New York, and of course, as always, Dan Dunleavy, now officially a friend of the program. Hopefully he doesn't block my number for taking up 80 minutes of his time, but we appreciate it so much. Hurls, your final thoughts.
Yeah, that was super cool, and I think offered some valuable perspective on the mindset heading into this season. Yeah, there were some losses, but there were also some additions. If I had one more question with him, I would have asked him how he's dealing with the Owen-Olin situation, especially if they're on the same pair this year. I'm sure he will mention that on the broadcast, as he always does. Gives us a little insight into how he calls these things. But, yeah, I think the additions are good, especially on defense. I think the goaltending is going to take a step up. And then those guys that he mentioned, Noah Ostlund, Zach Benson, Josh Doan, didn't even mention him, but I think we all know Konstantin Hanus is in for a very exciting, I guess it would be his first official rookie season as a Buffalo Sabres. So, I can't wait. Personally, we're about a month and a half, little less than that away from the beginning of the season. We've got preseason coming up here in a few weeks. So looking forward to it. And yeah, very much appreciate Dan coming on and giving us this time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, you can find us again on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your audio only podcast. You can find us there at Two Goalies One Mike. We are on Twitter, Instagram at Two Goalies One Mike, myself at Duane S39, my co-host at Hurls13, the podcast itself at Two Goalies One Mike. And of course, as always, YouTube. We see you guys watching along on YouTube. Please make sure you are, of course, following along. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Hit the little bell icon so you know when we go live. And for those of you still watching, please hammer that like button. It means a lot to us. And of course, there's a new hype button now too. Hype the show. So that being said, for Connor Hurley, I am Duane Sinnell. This has been episode 229. Two Goalies, One Mike. Thank you again to Dan Dunleavy. We will talk to you guys later. And as always, go Sabres.